That's interesting. They tell me we're going live, so I always thought I was live to begin with. So I don't know if it's that big a journey to go live especially in the 21st century in this era of awakening. How are you this morning, Barrett?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I think I'm alive too. So I think we're matching each other this morning.
Yes, there's that parallel rhythm, wolves running in the woods,
Ah,
as it were. So, and we had really a very nice event. We didn't have a huge number of people, but it was a very bonded group of us this last Sunday for our event down in Alsip, Step into the Light. And so keep your ears open, people, because we have more stuff coming up as we move into warmer weather and longer days. And so that's something to have the expectation of to joining us for a live event here in the Chicago region.
it's true. At some point, we'll be able to put our Polish long johns away, as we were discussing last week.
Yes, get those gotchkis washed and folded up and in the drawer, waiting for next year.
That's the word. I knew you'd know it.
Yes. Well, I have a Polish daughter-in-law, so I'm not fluent in Polish, but I do have those little blips every once in a while that I can drop into conversation and make conversation more interesting. And we are looking at number 20 in the Manual for Teachers, which is What is the Peace of God? And that is spelled P-E-A-C-E for those of you who aren't referencing the book rather than P-I-E-C-E. So, but there is also that aspect of it of getting a chunk of God. It's inside you. You just haven't recognized it yet.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we are divine. We often think that we're something else. Um, there's that quote, that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I would even kind of extend that to say that we are just being, the capital B being. We are one being altogether. We're not individual beings having these bodily experiences. We are collected. We are whole. I sometimes think of it as the opposite of the Humpty Dumpty story, where he fell
Yes.
off the wall and broke himself in all these pieces. But no, we're all the little pieces who thought they were broken, but we never actually fell. We're still whole, and our whole process is just knowing that that's the truth. So, yeah, this section is really beautiful. What is the peace of God? I'm going to just start off with the first sentence because it's great. It has been said that there is a kind of peace that is not of this world. And I think that's what we're all really going for. There's this deeper peace that sort of transcends the things that happen here on the level of form, that can be our guiding principle, that can be our ally as we walk through this world. And we can know that we're truly never alone, even if we're the only body in a room. That doesn't mean that we're not actually with God, with love, with peace. And that really reassures me in these times where sometimes we do have these kind of dark times. But to know that even in those tough times, we're not forsaken. We're not left behind. We're not abandoned.
Exactly. And, one of the things that I always envision with this idea of the peace of God is that a lot of people imagine that as being, flatlined, just laying on the bed in that warm, fuzzy mode before you have to get up and go to work and that sort of thing. But that really isn't what the peace of God is all about. It's not about that retreat so much as it's recognizing that inner source of peace. And you can have the peace of God. I know I sensed that presence around me frequently when I was in Vietnam. You can have that presence. You can have that peace of God in any environment at any time. So if you want to go skydiving next weekend, you can jump out of that plane assuredly, knowing that the peace of God is a part of your experience. So it's not this wimpy, frumpy kind of, surrendering to fate and circumstance, but the peace of God is a vital part of our lives, and it is that stability, that anchor in assuredness and in truth and in being alive in every sense of the word, that is always continuously unfolding within us. And all we have to do is just be still and make that connection.
Yeah, yeah. In the Course, Jesus uses the word strength or strong in different ways, and in different ways than we commonly think of them. He says that strength is the part of us that is choosing love consistently. Now, that's not what we would normally think of as strength. It's not. We think of big muscles or big guns or something like that. But those are weak, according to the Course. That reliance on the physical is destined to be unstable. It may be temporarily kind of satisfying or feel like it helps you be safe, but ultimately the walls will tumble down, the guns will break, or the muscles will atrophy. But what will not ever weaken is the love of God. And this is what we want to keep choosing, because we want to kind of make our foundation something that is stable and secure, rather than something that is shifting and changing and uncertain. So yeah, I really identify with that idea that the peace of God is not a waffling kind of, I don't know, like strange thing. It's a strong, certain thing, for sure.
Exactly. And one of the biggest obstacles to attaining and dwelling in that space, from my perspective, is our tendency to make plans. If you are planning, if you are living in expectation of, having to have your loins gird up, as the biblical image is revealed to us, if you feel like you are always in a position where you have to fight for life, and you're always having to plan ahead, then you haven't read the Course enough. You haven't looked deeply into it. Because once we make that connection, once we establish firmly in our consciousness that we are living and moving and dwelling in God, plans become irrelevant, because then day and night and the whole process of time becomes a natural unfolding. And you're always where you're supposed to be, and you're always doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you can live in that extended state of experiencing the peace of God.
Yeah, I'm still back on girding my loins. That's a great expression.
Yes, it creates a lot of interesting visuals, but in your mind's eye. But nonetheless, there is that unpleasant side of the human experience where we're inclined, especially if we're completely tuned into the ego at all times, to be very, very insecure. And I think the peace of God is the foundation for living in a state of feeling very secure and never having any sorrows or fears that can upset our apple cart.
Yeah, and it is kind of a high bar. It's the ultimate goal, but I don't think we should aim for anything less. I think we should go for it, and I think the benefits occur even before, excuse me, before we attain that. We start to have more peace in our lives. We start to have more happiness in our experience. We start to be less perturbed by the things that kind of go in ways that we don't expect. For example, I'm planning a Course in Miracles event out here we're going to be involved in called the Course in Miracles Symposium, and I was working with one church as a place to host it, and I just found out today that that's not going to happen. So it's like noticing, if there's like a twinge of upset over that, and being with that, not hiding from the upset or pretending I don't feel that, but also not giving it excess power, not really feeding the wolf, so to speak, and realizing that, yeah, okay, there's another ego thought. All right, I don't need to attach to it. I don't need to believe in it. I don't need to run down this path that it's kind of beginning. And the good news is that when I can watch my little bits of anger, sometimes not so little, that come up, and do so from a sort of detached place, then it's sort of like a black flower that blooms and then it fades and it's gone. And okay, now it's gone. And now we're back in the peace. We're back in this peace of God that we're talking about. So I'm going to read a little bit of this section because it's just so nice. God's peace is recognized at first by just one thing. In every way, it is totally unlike all previous experiences. It calls to mind nothing that went before. It brings with it no past associations. It is a new thing entirely. There is a contrast, yes, between this thing and all the past, but strangely, it is not a contrast of true differences. The past just slips away, and in its place is everlasting quiet. Only that. The contrast first perceived has merely gone. Quiet has reached to cover everything. So it's just a beautiful expression of that shift that happens inside of us when we watch the happenings here in the world, and even our initial impulse reactions to those happenings. But we sort of step back from all of that. And in so doing, we realize that because we're not a body, nothing here can really touch us. What we really are can't be hurt, it can't be killed, can't really even be touched. And that certainty of that being is really that goal that we're talking about, to stand in that no matter what is happening in your life.
Yeah, I like the idea that throughout the Course, over and over and over again, the idea of death being, that illusion that we have created and that we hold on to, that's really the core of what motivates 99% of what we experience in this earthly realm, is that either running away from death or wallowing around in it and going down hard and dirty with 5 different kinds of cancer and this and that and blood and gore. And the peace of God is something that when people are confronted with their own potential death, if you can slide into that state where you're claiming the peace of God and experiencing the peace of God, all of a sudden you start to recognize that in truth, death really has no more pull or power over you than what you have allowed for. And I think that's the beauty of the Course, is that it keeps taking us back to that recognition that death is a silly little idea that we created, and it has no power. It is in every way the absolute absence of power. And so God's will for us is the only power that exists, and God's will for us is life. So why are we getting wound up in all of these absurdities when we can cease to be in conflict and cease to be compromised and fear-driven, and re-immerse ourselves in the peace of God. So as we move down to the final section of this particular chapter that we're looking at, it comes up real clearly. There is no thought that contradicts His will. God's will is something that cannot be contradicted. The contrast between His will and yours but seem to be reality. So all of this silliness that we've created is once again reiterated. It's not real, and we just need to allow ourselves to step out of it. In truth, there is no conflict, for His will is yours. Now is the mighty will of God Himself, His gift to you. So imagine having that ongoing day-to-day experience of living and moving in God and experiencing His presence or its presence, and knowing that nothing is harmful, nothing is a threat. And that really is the final outcome of the peace of God, is to live a life without threats and without fear and without expectation of something bad on the horizon.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's such a marked contrast to how most of us experience life. And we think about even certain groups of people like refugees that are trying to escape from their place because it's so unstable. And in a sense, we're all spiritual refugees. We believe we wandered off into this far country, and it's not a good place to be. But we can, through choices we make at the level of mind, realize that we are safe. And we can do that even while we still seem to be doing the same things here in our world. But we can do that knowing that we are really in God's country, that we really are in that place of peace. There's an image that Jesus uses throughout the course of kind of like the lawns of heaven. And it's a beautiful image that kind of evokes this idea of peace and tranquility. And we can go from this kind of war-torn, strife-filled existence to this place where we're resting on these gentle lawns of heaven. And I think that's a beautiful image for us to carry as we go through our day.
Yes, the Elysian fields of divinity. That's actually a place that I like to frequent as often as I can. And of course, that becomes another dialogue all about, how often are you connected to God in your conscious thinking? And it's the answer, of course, is simple. It's as much as you want to be, because nothing else should have precedence over stopping and partaking of the peace of God, because it's always there for you.
Yeah, well said. I think we can bring that God with us everywhere we go, because there's nowhere that God is not. And as we know that God is always with us, then it really transforms our experience of everything that we do. Yeah, maybe it just seems like that extra sparkle in your eyes as you go to the grocery store, but it could totally transform that experience for you.
And for those you encounter, that's the beauty of it. It splashes over. You can share that peace with others and help them get out of their tailspins that they're stepping into throughout the day. Sometimes just a kind word and a loving thought will turn a person's day around. So how magnificent is that you can share that with everybody you encounter.
Yeah, we are all in this together, that's for sure.
Well, Barrett, this was a very enjoyable discussion, and I don't know, we might even pick this up again before we leave this particular theme behind. Perhaps
I'm okay with that. This is a very rich rich section. So I think a repeat performance is in order.
Yes. So in 1 week, we'll be distributing more peace, or at least God will be, and we'll be working in our capacity to facilitate that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I hope you have a great week, Chris, and I look forward to talking to you next Thursday.
Yes, absolutely. You have a fantastic time, and we will reconvene in 7 days.
All right.